The conversation of your life, local, relevant, digital, and always on.
America will hear my 2 cents.
Elected to serve iHub radio listeners across the desert cities. He calls it as he sees it.
Quick question.
Now, here's Russ Betts.
Someone answer him now!
All right, well, good morning to you. It's Sunday, and in case you're wondering why we're on late, it's because we've had a programming change. Happy to have you with us. Normally you'd have Anita Rufus here, the lovable liberal, coming to you for the next 2 hours, but to her listeners, welcome. Anita is now shifted to a Saturday start time, and you can hear a rebroadcast just immediately before this show, so you can get her on Saturday and Sunday. But right now you got me, and welcome to the Russ Betts Show, coming to you from, well, it's a quiet Palm Springs. Everybody's in lockdown here. You drive the streets of Palm Springs, and it's quiet. And there happens to be an airport, an international airport in Palm Springs that's got, a lot of rental car business. Except those rental cars aren't out on the street. They're all in the parking lots. Everywhere. Stuffed everywhere you can imagine. It's quite a sight. You never realize how many rental cars are out on the streets every day. But of course, with nobody here, nobody renting them, well, they're not out in the streets, they're in the lots, and the lots are just stuffed full. So that's just one of the sights here as you drive through the streets of Palm Springs. Besides a normally busy, bustling tourist town, I guess you call it a tourist town, it's Palm Canyon Boulevard. It's just always busy, except not now. And, that's going to wreak some havoc on the Palm Springs budget. And I got some of that information for you. City Manager David Reddy was interviewed on the Desert Sun saying that this is worse than what happened in 2008, so get ready. And we're going to get you what he had to say in those numbers, courtesy of the Desert Sun and Sherry Barkus, who, excellent article. And we're going to run down each other city in the Coachella Valley. But right now, I think what's on everybody's mind is, how long till we get open? I'm seeing that more and more. And I know, obviously, there's the concern about those who are sick, the frontline workers in the hospitals, and we see those pleas from the nurses to stay home, wear your mask, do everything you can to keep from showing up in the hospital ward, especially the ICU units. They don't want to see you, and they want you home. And one nurse put it like this: don't think of it stuck at home, think of it as safe at home. But increasingly on social media are people saying, when are we going to get back to work? I ain't got any checks yet from the government. I'm waiting for that stimulus check, but that's not going to go far. I'm getting behind on my bills. I've already told my landlord I'm not able to make the rent. No, is it 1/3 of renters are behind on their rent right now, which is just a staggering number. That comes out of the landlord group. But the question is, when are we going to open up? When's this going to get back? Now, in Riverside County on April 4th, the Riverside County said until April 30th, everything is going to be shut down. Of course, the schools are closed until, the school year's done. School district's getting ready to work on classrooms from home. Now, if you go look at some of the other countries around the world, well, that's what everybody's watching. Singapore, Korea, South Korea, that is, and China, and even Italy now is starting to have the conversation. They're all ahead of us. If you think of this as a book that you're reading, and let's say it's got 10 chapters in this book, and the U.S. is maybe on chapter 5 or 6, and if you read ahead by looking at the other countries, figuratively speaking, you could see that where we are now, other countries were here, 2, 3, 4 weeks ago. And I'm reading this article in Wired magazine, and it says, because of the coronavirus outbreak, the factories are not operating as they did before. So let's take a look at what's going on. Those people who are a little further along in this book than we are, and we're going to skip ahead a few chapters and see what's coming up. So maybe we can answer that question, when are we going to open up? So this company, they reopened in February, but they have their workers enter in shifts that are staggered to minimize potential exposure. And they have infrared cameras and security staff checking temperatures of workers as they arrive. Workspaces are decontaminated 3 times per day, and workers must wear masks at all times, and there's some type of health screening. They can have no more than 6 people allowed in an elevator. They have tape on the floor to show where to stand. Face-to-face meetings are discouraged. People eat alone in a cafeteria. And where they have to be in the cafeteria together, they use pieces of cardboard between them because they can't have their mask on when they're eating, so they put a piece of cardboard between them. Is that what we're going to see here? Is that how we're going to open back up? With some precautions. Hi, it's time to start opening up. It's time to restart this economy. It's time to get back to business. But here's what you got to do if you want to open up your store, your shop, or your business, or your factory. They got new rules in place at the, some of the famous manufacturers like Foxconn has introduced some extreme measures to prevent the spread of the disease. They have frequent temperature testing. They've given 50,000 coronavirus tests to their workers, 40,000 chest x-rays, and anybody with an elevated temperature is immediately taken to a hospital. And the same thing with the telecom giant Highway. It's 90% of its company's workforce, 150,000 employees, are back to work. But their workers were introduced gradually. And I think if you look at the cities of Shenzhen and Guangzhou, according to this report in Wired, they're back to normal. That's the news reports. Their businesses, their freeways are busy, their streets are busy, their stores are open, everybody's back to normal, except for these precautions. And that coincides with the calls that I've made to friends and in-laws living in China. I've got a friend of mine, he does YouTube vlogs. He's over there, an expatriate living in China. And he uploaded the latest title on his vlog was, "Traffic is back to normal in Wuxi." And he threw in, "Thank God the pub is open," because now the restaurants are open, the pubs are back open. So when do we go back to work? And I'm seeing on social media a growing relentlessness. I mean, more and more extended middle fingers to the idea of people saying, well, maybe at the end of July, or even the suggestions of October or September. Now you got Singapore, Hong Kong, South Korea, Taiwan, and China have what they call flattened the curve. They're starting to see these reincidences. That's what everybody's worried about. If we go open up again, are we going to see a new instance of, this thing coming back where we think we had it beat and then all of a sudden we relaxed our quarantine too soon and now it's back? Well, we can look ahead and see in these countries, Singapore, Hong Kong, South Korea, Taiwan have flattened the curve. But now they got travelers coming in from the U.S. and Europe, and they have some students that were here overseas traveling, going back home, and now they're having to test, and they're finding out that they're starting to get some new cases. And you can go to the Ministry of Health website for Singapore, and they have 191 new cases of COVID-19 infection that are confirmed. Italy, which is very, very hard hit, they're pressing the government to reopen their factories to prevent an economic catastrophe. And so now the world's watching to see, how the Western countries are going to, that have imposed this lockdown and this unprecedented measures to control this, basically take a booming economy and then now it's gone. We're all now starting to wonder, when do we go back to work? People have had their businesses closed for a month. Now, as far as California goes, the curve in California is starting to flatten out. On May 10th is the date in which the IHME website, which is what all the government agencies are using to track the curve, it says on May 10th there will be the total flatness of the curve. Now, if you watch that, that's been inching backwards. A few days ago, it was May 13th. So they've shaved 3 days off of that already. And I know there's those of you out there who think they didn't have to put any measures in place. I mean, the growing calls for this, the people saying that this is a hoax. You listen to these accounts from these nurses, and it's pretty hard to call this a hoax. I mean, a hoax relies on everybody keeping secret. And there's just way too many players in this one for that to happen. We read an account of a nurse last week. I'm going to read you an account of a day in the life of an EMT. So it's happening. And the problem here is, who wants to get this? It's a really, really deadly thing if you end up with it, and especially for the older age groups. So, all right. We're going to divert just a little bit when we get back. We got some news around the valley. There is actually other stuff going on. This is Russ Betts on iHub Radio in beautiful downtown Palm Springs.